Beyond.
Welcome once again to Podcast Beyond, episode 393. This is the ultimate PlayStation podcast. I am your host, Max Scova. With me, Marty Sleva.
That was intimidating.
Yeah, because get away from me.
Yeah.
Watch it, Marty. Also, who's probably better at being intimidating in real life, Brian Altano. And who probably couldn't and wouldn't intimidate anyone because he's just a ray of sunshine, Jared Petty.
I don't intimidate, I just destroy my enemies.
Okay, I stand corrected. That was a little bit intimidating.
I feel uncomfortable in this room.
Wow. You don't have any of those, though, right?
Wow. Enemies? Not really, no. I mean, not anymore. Once dead.
Because they're dead.
Yeah, they're gone.
All right.
All right.
I didn't say that. Destroyed.
Yes.
Destroyed.
Like, subscribe, and send.
Yeah.
It's like in Orwell, vaporized.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have reaped the whirlwind. Okay, so we've got things to talk about. Is this right? Yooka-Layle? We're talking about a
You always just seem so confused when we
Why
get
are you like...
what are the odds that somebody left the wrong notes in here and they're just like, well, I got some good news about Halo 5 coming. Yooka-Layle, which is the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, which, to my knowledge, has never been on a PlayStation system.
No.
Is a thing on Kickstarter.
it Kickstarter. We're going to talk about that. I'm excited.
Kickstarted right in the behind. We're going to gripe a little bit more about the Arkham Knight Season Pass DLC because there is a lot of it. Quite a lot of it,
but it's like the opposite of a gripe. I think.
Is it a good gripe?
It's a good gripe. This is a follow up to last week's conversation. It's less gripey.
Okay,
good.
Less gripey version of that.
Yeah.
I think that Good Gripes is a brand of kitchenware that I use that has rubberized gripes on the handles of all the things.
Rubberized gripes.
Get a gripe.
What about Good Grapes?
Good Grapes, delicious. We're going to answer a question we get a lot about Metal Gear, which we got an email about, but I also see it posted on Facebook about once a week. So our dream video game mashup. God, we've got so many wonderful topics. And we got an actual physical letter in the mail. And then we're going to finally address our Podcast Beyond Book Club.
We did bad, but now we did good.
We did bad, but we're going to try to fix it better. Aru's Awakening and Monster Bag are the games we were playing. If you played those with us at home, then you can know what we're talking about. Hopefully. Wolfenstein: The Old Blood is out Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm reviewing it, but we don't have it.
All right, that's an odd thing to have.
That's a spooky thing.
Okay.
And then of course, we've got our new PlayStation Plus for the month, which we'll get to.
Smiling.
No, that's it. Max is always. It's like a grandfather who just got the newspaper and he's like, Korea.
That's because they asked me to do. They're like, host the show. Marty puts these in front of me. They put these things.
We all contribute to the stock throughout the morning.
Yeah, this has been around since, 9 a.m.?
I was busy today.
He's not trying to Ron Burgundy you. Yooka-Layle's a real game name.
Yeah.
Yooka-Layle. Okay, what Yooka-Layle?
Are we going to get into it?
Yeah.
Let's get into Yooka-Layle.
Yooka-Layle. Funded within an hour, fastest game to hit $1 million in Kickstarter, which is already over $2 million. It's Playtonic Games, who are a bunch of former Rare devs who did Donkey Kong Country and Banjo-Kazooie and Viva Pinata.
Yeah.
Yooka-Layle is a chameleon with a bat on its head.
Yeah, Yuka is the chameleon, Layle is the bat.
It's the animal, the bat, not the sporting good.
Not the Casey Jones weapon.
Yeah.
That'd be a weird thing to have on someone's head.
It's a video game.
That's true. I guess a bat is a weird animal to have on a chameleon.
You gotta know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome news. This is really awesome news.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the sort of classic open world-ish 3D platformers that all but died. And I think it's because they kind of killed themselves. The market got incredibly oversaturated with them at some point. A lot of people say Donkey Kong 64 was the one that kind of killed that off. It's up there. You know, but there was a lot of really bad. I mean, this happened on PlayStation too. There was a lot of really bad kind of open world-ish platforming games. I would say even some of the Crash Bandicoots veered into questionable territory at times.
So I mean, this has obviously the Rare legacy obviously comes from Nintendo platforms and is now on Microsoft.
Yeah.
But the 3D character-based platformers, I think, were a staple of PS1 and PS2.
Yeah.
That's where Insomniac started with stuff like we had Spyro and Ratchet and Clank, and then that's where Naughty Dog started with stuff like Crash and Jak and Daxter.
Yeah.
And then, it sort of just went away, and then first-person shooters came up, and that sort of became the new genre du jour.
People grew up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but counterpoint to that, I think that these aren't games that we're necessarily playing, but I do think the genre does still exist. This is Skylanders. This is Disney Infinity. I mean, those are this kind of game. They're just not made for us anymore.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
I would actually say that those are more hack and slash games set in a 3D
Yeah, I would say that
environment.
Skylanders is very firmly rooted in something like Diablo.
There is
Yeah.
it is very hack and slash. I agree, but so are a lot of these exploratory platformers. Frankly, I mean,
I think a lot of those games are interesting. They just kind of lose that kind of the word collectathon that used to get thrown around, which I think the Lego games kind of nail more than anything else.
Yeah, that's
They're
a good
actually the closest thing we have to 3D platformers right now on that collection aspect, and the platforming stuff is obviously still held down by games like Little Big Planet and Super Mario, but no one, even Nintendo's not really doing that sort of Mario 64. Here's your hub world. It's all connected by smaller worlds with different challenges that you have to
themes and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I think also, I think people realize that a lot of 3D platforming initially was very gimmicky.
Yeah.
You know, it was utilizing the hardware. Like Super Mario 64 changed the way games are made entirely. And a lot of people wanted it to be exactly that in the years that followed. And I think eventually it kind of came to terms with the fact that it's hard to make a really balanced game that fits that format.
Yeah.
And when you're making a game that's typically targeted at kids, if it's too difficult or it doesn't work right, it's probably just easier to just do something 2D or to do something that's a little bit simpler.
Yeah.
You know, I actually distinctly hated Banjo-Kazooie. I never got into Banjo-Kazooie, but Banjo-Kazooie came out right when I was, I think, like 12 or 13, and I was already kind of moving away from the cutesy Nintendo stuff. And like I was into Metal Gear at that point, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'd moved on to something that I thought was more mature and older. But also there's something kind of goofy and cartoony in a way that just never hit me right, you know. Like I totally get nostalgic for like 80s cartoons.
Yeah.
70s cartoons don't do that for me. And I think that there is an entire generation of kids who see something like Banjo-Kazooie or Yooka-Laylee, and they're like, "Oh, that's my childhood right there. I want to go right there and jump right on that."
Yeah.
But you know, and I have that feeling for Pokemon, but for whatever reason, this just doesn't move the needle there.
And that group of people who, you know, this is tugging at their heartstrings is evident in the fact that this was funded like literally in 45 minutes.
Well, that group of people is where everyone in this room is now, where they are grown-ups with expendable incomes, and everyone's listening to the show.
Yeah.
You're not listening to the show if you don't, unless you're just like, I buy one game every 5 years, but I love podcasts. Like, if you're listening to a video game podcast, you have some extra money to throw around. It's some dumb toy stuff, probably because you enjoy it, or also because it sort of reminds you of something from your childhood. But this is funded entirely by a group of, I would guess, 20 to 30 somethings who are huge fans of this genre, and they watched it disappear, and they want it to come back in some form.
Yeah.
And they have, you know, $15 or $20 or $30. Like, the entry to get into something like this is pretty low, considering that you get a copy of the game, I think, for PC and one of the consoles for, I believe it's $35 plus a playable demo.
Yeah, and
That's
so
awesome.
you're getting, you're going to get, the game's going to be downloadable when it comes out for PC, Wii U, Xbox One, and obviously PS4.
Right.
Which is super exciting. Yeah, that was a stretch goal that I think was meant like
Which
immediately.
is the other interesting thing. Does somebody can you actually pull up their Kickstarter? I want to know just how many backers they actually have.
Oh, the actual number.
Yeah, but the other interesting thing is that back in the day, these games were $60, $70, $80. You know, 3D platformers, and now you're getting a brand new one for $25.
Yeah.
And they're adding. This is why this is an important story for me as like a guy who used to play platformers like this. But it's also an important story for gamers, because watching this game grow and develop on the fly is kind of amazing. They are adding tiers faster than I think any video game Kickstarter ever has, and they're flying through them.
Yeah, their initial like 10 tiers got eclipsed weekend.
They're actually
Kickstarter
they announced one over the weekend that was like, we'll hire an orchestra to play the music.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
No.
that's
amazing.
Yeah, it's insane, because I remember playing Banjo-Kazooie or Mario 64. I was never like, oh, this needs an orchestra, you know. But then you look at something like Mario Kart 8 and you hear the music in it, and you go, okay, that
Well,
really
yeah,
makes
the
sense.
N64, that was one of its few weaknesses, was sound.
Yeah.
And so here they're going to have an opportunity to improve on one of the aspects of this game that they couldn't technically do before. I don't like Banjo-Kazooie, and I'm still very excited about this. And the reason for that is this has actually happened before in a different way. It was pre-Kickstarter, but there was a period of time that 2D platformers were considered dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everybody got older, that grew up on them and got their own credit cards, and suddenly there was demand again, and a few small ones came out at first, little experimental ones, and suddenly, bam, there was this renaissance of 2D platformers, which continues to this day with games like with Rayman just a year ago, or some of the other wonderful things we're getting. And now it's happening for 3D platforms.
I think we're seeing it with the rhythm genre as well, which is really cool. That's just like I don't know. I've been like I'm 34 years old, right? So I've seen a lot in terms of the video game industry. I pretty much grew up with it, and there were probably a couple of times throughout my existence where I was like, this genre is dead. Like puzzle games are gone now, and no, they're not, because now there's a way to bring them back. And 3D platforming is gone. No, it's not. Rhythm games are gone. No, it's not.
With digital distribution, nothing has to be gone anymore. There's an economic way to make these games and not have to charge $60 on a physical medium and hand them to you, which is awesome.
With not so much digital distribution, but with crowdfunding,
the number is 40,000. Okay, has 40,000 backers as of the fourth day of its.
Yeah, which is like. It's interesting because this is now the quickest. I think it's the quickest $1 million video game Kickstarter.
The third quickest Kickstarter ever. I think after like the Pebble.
It's up there with that Pebble Watch and a couple other things.
I think it makes sense that you had a lot of people, obviously, that they knew were going to be interested in this. But the other half of this is the fact that this is Platonic. These are guys that have already made games that people want. They're just like, these are the guys that made that thing I love and that other thing I love. And they haven't gotten to make what they want in a long, long time. And
besides, they're Platonic. They're not trying to you. They just want to be friends. That was worth it.
That was totally worth it.
Throw it in there.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's amazing that small amount of people can create such a successful Kickstarter. Because what I was saying to you guys off air a couple of days ago was when this was at 19,000 people.
Yeah.
Even at 40,000 people doesn't even chart you on the NPD.
Sure.
Right.
Like that's not even in the top. I don't even think that's in the top 50 or 40 games on NPD. If Sony put out a new game and they said this is coming exclusively to PlayStation 4, it's a 3D platformer and it sold 40,000 copies, that team that worked on it would probably be dissolved. Yeah. And that game would be laughed out of the industry as like a bomb. And for years, people would be like, "Oh, that sleeper hit that no one played."
Yeah.
But this, in reverse, through the Kickstarter model, is now one of the it's one of the most impressive feats in modern video game history.
Yeah.
So
Really,
I think it's amazing that story can be told in different ways like that. And now we have a hit. Before the game's even out, these guys already made their money. So
the problem with it though is that people have expectations.
Yeah, so now, you don't know, is this going to be like Shovel Knight or Broken Age, where we gave them all this money and something amazing came out of it.
Yeah,
or is it
could
going to be a Dutch?
It could fall apart, but it's hope for the best, and just it is scary though with specifically with Kickstarter. You see this I think less with Patreon because more of a sense of like a kind of camaraderie and
we're
kind
in
of
it together.
ongoing funding, but it's also harder to fund like kind of like single packages, which is what a game is. With Kickstarter, we saw this a lot with the Oculus Rift. When people donate towards something, they feel like they are investors, and they have Oculus got bought by Facebook, and then it's like, where's my money?
And the investors didn't get a penny.
Yeah. And but that's kind of part of the.
I think it's also kind of interesting because for almost, I would say nowadays, for every success you hear about a Kickstarter, you also hear about one where things went horribly awry, and that's obviously the way that we report things and all the media reports things, because there's hundreds of Kickstarters that go perfectly fine, or just flatline, nothing happens at all. But like I was just reading about one the other day about this guy who was making this modded N64. Did you guys read about this Kickstarter? This guy basically put up a fake Kickstarter for a portable N64 kit.
Oh wow!
And it turns out he stole all the pictures off of like Etsy or something,
like Ben Heck's website or something.
Got all the money and no one could find him for a while, and he like messaged everybody the other day and he's like, "Sorry, I was on a cruise." And like that sucks. And I feel kind of like the Kickstarter spike happened already. That's though if you had asked me a month ago, I would have been like, this story's done. But obviously there's still life left, and there's still some faith and some trust in the system.
There's still models where Kickstarter works better than Patreon. I mean, Patreon's good for all kinds of things, but you do need that upfront money sometimes just to make sure you can get the people on board to build a big team.
Oh yeah, because this team right now seems like it's like 10 people, and I have no doubt it's going to grow.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to see it happen. I really am just thrilled about this, though. I've been burned on Kickstarter, but I've also gotten Broken Age out of it. So.
And at the very least, we're going to get a new 3D platforming game on the PS4.
Now
it isn't Knack.
Here is something to think about. This is a bunch of ex-Rare devs. Rare got bought by Microsoft. What are the odds we're going to see this on Sony before Microsoft? Like if they're going to be doing stuff, you can believe that people at probably all the console manufacturers are on the phone trying to like get these guys to be like, oh hey, let's talk. You're hired.
That's tough, man. So
as of now, the messaging is day and date. On everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how that's going to work with Kickstarter, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we kickstarted Broken Age, but then it became a PlayStation game as well, and it's not a Microsoft game.
Same. I mean, Shovel Knight launched on Nintendo platforms.
Exactly.
Right? So I mean, that's always a conversation with these things. Is if you look at something like Shovel Knight, like we all made that a success, or everyone who kickstarted it, but it could have just stopped there. It didn't. Like because the game was good. Like we all got it out the door, but once it was there, the buzz was so strong that it kept going. I mean, it was a Game of the Year nominee for IGN. That's when it stops being a Kickstarter indie darling and starts being a real game that a lot of people take seriously. And now it's got platform-exclusive DLC on PS4. It's got platform-exclusive DLC on Xbox, and you know it had a launch exclusivity on Nintendo. So I think a lot of people might be mad about that. Like, there's this weird allegiance happening right now where suddenly, like, because of Rare and Microsoft, that like it's as if they've been together for a long time. Like when I saw the Battletoads stuff in Shovel Knight, I was like, why? Like no Halo fan really cares about the speeder bike level from Battletoads.
I thought that was adorable myself.
Yeah, you did but you would have loved that anyway. You know?
Exactly.
I don't really know if that's like an Xbox thing specifically. So if Sony's smart, they'll get on the phone and they'll say, you know, throw a Sackboy costume in this game. Put Knack in this game.
No, don't put Knack in. Please don't put Knack anywhere ever again.
People always like to, you know, do those petitions where it's like, oh, make a new Majora's Mask or whatever. You know, like there's those fan petitions, and the thing is, a signature doesn't really mean anything on the internet. Like you can have billions of people say that they watch a video of a cat or whatever. That doesn't mean that cat is a movie star. You know, it's like that's not how that works. That's not how anything works at all.
Sure, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
But I mean, like Kickstarter, on the other hand, if you actually have something with a dollar sign at the front of it, that means a lot more than some signatures. So you know,
40,000 people give you $20 a piece, then all of a sudden you got something going there.
It's a start.
Yeah.
All right.
Kind of like the Supreme Court, but with your money.
What is that even? What is that? Justice? We talking about justice?
Speaking of giving people $40 a piece or something, $40, I guess. Arkham Knight has a season pass of DLC, which has a lot of stuff in it, a bunch of different things.
Yeah. So last week, we bemoaned the fact that I don't know. Did we talk about the price last week?
It's like $40 in addition to the price of the game.
So
right?
that was the whole thing last week. Was that this was? They announced the season pass for $40. And they went radio silent on what's in it.
On what it's but
and so they're just like, give us your $40, and everyone's like, well, what? Like for what? And they're just like, it's gonna have some stuff. And so there was this massive outcry, despite the fact that like everyone loves Rocksteady, like everyone is excited for this game. There was this outcry. Well, no, like tell me what it is first before I give you 2/3 of the price extra of this video game.
Right. So here's what it is. You get Batgirl: A Matter of Family, which is an all-new prequel story expansion in an entirely new location where you play as Batgirl for the very first time in the Arkham series. Check out the first render of Batgirl. I can't click that link because it's a piece of paper.
I'm assuming, they say by prequel story because in the games, Oracle's already wheelchair bound,
right?
Like post Killing Joke events. So I'm imagining this is when she wasn't.
I like the idea of an entirely new area. By the way, I feel like a lot of these, like the Catwoman stuff, was always kind of a retread of the same areas you were already in.
The Season of Infamy, you play as Batman in all new story missions featuring legendary supervillains invading Gotham City with new story arcs, missions, and gameplay features. That is really very vague.
That's super vague.
Super vague.
Yeah.
Stuff.
That's super vague in terms of they probably haven't started building this yet.
Yeah.
So they're like, there's got to be a bad guy and a mission.
I mean, they say story missions, but it's like that could be like a challenge
a
mode.
story
that
arc
scenes
a story arc could be
missions.
cutscenes or just exposition.
To me,
better go over here next.
Yeah, it sounds like they drop. There's a newspaper clipping and they drop Killer Croc on the map somewhere, and you have to go across the city and fight him. That's cool. It's fine.
Then there's Gotham City stories. You play as Batman's key allies in narrative missions. This is different from a story mission, apparently, extending their storylines from both before and after the events in Batman Arkham Knight.
Or is it as Alfred?
A story mission extending their narrative.
Do you want to play as Alfred?
Wow. I do want to play. Yeah.
Wow, you just want to deliver things?
I just want to play as Alfred.
Tapper
Totally.
almost.
Yeah, just like Tapper. Just
like Cooking Mama, but it's with like...
I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
Benedict.
Butler
He brings out a meal and Batman's just like, I'm not hungry.
But it's all like really really gritty. He's got like carbon fiber tuxedo on.
Yeah,
he's just like
there.
he's just totally ripped.
Pours
I
hot
love
tea
that.
on criminals. And
I like how there's a bunch of different mini games. It turns into like Trauma Center when you have to like get the bullets out of Batman's side.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
You have to tell a riveting anecdote about a ruby the size of a tangerine.
We're joking, but I would totally play this game. This sounds great.
I love it. It'd be like the karaoke in Sleeping Dogs, but with like a Michael Caine accent. You know?
I love that.
Just you got to get the intonation, you got to get the gravitas right. Then of course they're legendary Batmobiles with themed tracks. Drive the most iconic Batmobiles from Batman's 75-year history on custom-built racetracks, each themed to that Batmobile-specific era. Every Batmobile will be drivable across every racetrack. Bat Mario Kart? Are you kidding me?
I think it might be more like Bat Turismo. Yeah, this is great. This is, I mean...
Have you seen the tracks in this game, though? Like, have you seen... Because they're like challenge tracks. They're these weird like mini missions where it's sort of like the Riddler puzzles where you're like...
But you're a car.
At least last I saw, yeah. So it's basically like you got to use your missiles or whatever to flip a switch that makes a jump pop up and stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's actually interesting.
That sounds
like,
awesome.
It does not look like Gran Turismo.
So
car platform.
It reminds me of what's that game? Split Second.
Oh man!
Did you guys play that racing game that was like event? It was like a event-based racing game.
Yeah. Oh, that was interesting. I forgot about that game.
A lot of people did.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. It depends on the Batmobiles. I would love to see like an Adam West era Batmobile done in that engine.
Yeah, I imagine they'll do that. They'll go back to that iconic Tim Burton one. Hopefully not the Tumbler. I think the Tumbler's dumb.
I think the Tumbler's dumb too, and I actually think that
I think it's the Tumbler.
What do you guys got against the Tumbler?
It just looks dumb.
There's too many tweens posting on
What's
there.
the one with all the triangles coming off? Is it Batman and Robin?
Batman Forever has the
where you can like
three-way one.
That one I really like.
And I like the one. Yeah, I think Batman Forever or Robin where you can see sort of like the blue.
Yeah,
now,
those
like
the neon mobile.
Yeah,
those are bad movies. Really cool Batmobiles.
If they really want to make me just be like throw $40 at them as fast as I can, they would use the unused concept that H.R. Giger did for Batman Forever, where the Batmobile just looked like if you could have a four-ended dildo. And it was also a boomerang.
Are we?
I don't.
There have been 4 Saints Row games. You can say dildo on a podcast.
Yeah,
he's right.
Yeah.
Judges.
Wait, so I want to talk a little bit. So you edit the audio version of Beyond. What do you do for swears? Because I got a lot of tweets saying, "Awesome job on adding the animal noises to swears."
So here's what happened.
That wasn't me, and I don't know what
I
version
normally
you're
just
talking
use
about.
I just use beeps because it's a lot easier. But Alexia, who does the video, throws in apparently animal noises. And last week Brian's mic was screwed up, so I just stole the audio from him, and he'd already put in cat noises for the curses. So
instead of like what you just said, somebody might just hear hee-haw or something like that.
Yeah,
mostly cats. Yeah, if you can find a cat that does that, then shoot it.
All right. So back to business. Batman crime fighter challenge maps are a thing. These are of course different.
So exceedingly vague.
Engage in a series of new challenge maps utilizing the unique playstyles of Batman and his allies.
The next one's just gonna be extended gameplay.
Character
mechanics.
You guys know what challenge maps are, right?
Yeah.
I assume it's the same ones from the last
Like the challenge.
Those are the ones that I'm always like, I'm pretty good at this game, and I play those, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Those are almost like puzzles.
Yeah,
they
they're
really feel more
difficult.
like a puzzle.
They get really difficult.
Then there are character skins. So a variety of skins from across the eras of Batman, Robin, Nightwing, and Catwoman. I always like that because it's like getting to hire a different art director. You just go in there and you're like, oh, it's like Frank Miller Batman. That's cool. It's a big muscly Batman Beyond.
I want a Carl Weathers skin.
I want a Batman the animated series skin, but for the entire game.
For the whole game,
just a
draw it
filter.
on black paper and so so let's just play that.
Yeah,
game.
I want that too.
They always give us that costume, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Yep.
But he's still in that kind of like Nolan-esque, gritty, realistic.
Going back to Yooka-Layle for a second, one of their stretch goals which they hit were a filter to play the game in 64-bit. So it's going to look like an N64 game.
Oh,
Does that just mean like smearing Vaseline all
Pretty
over
much,
the screen?
yeah. Just destroying depth of field.
The terrible texture
Yeah.
cache on the N64, like playing itself out.
Cool. So what do we think about Batman's? You know what took them so long to get back what was in that season pass is they had to go find a thesaurus for how many words for story they could find.
No, this is
Story
great.
challenge narrative mission quest.
Like this stuff sounds cool. The Batgirl thing sounds awesome. $40 is pretty steep on top of a $60 game. I think the big story here, though, is I think this was an actual example of public outcry working.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that I don't necessarily condone moaning and crying and screaming over something you don't like. But that kind of worked here.
Yeah, so it's one of those, like, it was, crappy of them to be like, have $40 but no details, and everyone said this is sort of dumb. Like, this is the first time you guys have dropped the ball with your games.
Yeah, that was exactly it. Like, it wasn't like an EA thing where people are just or Ubisoft where people are so used to complaining about this thing. Yeah. This was just like, come on, we're supposed to love you guys.
Yeah, like,
Rocksteady.
we're not mad. We're disappointed.
Yeah,
they came back less than a week later and we're like, hey, so we heard that some people wanted more details, and here are details. So good on them.
It reminded me of when to me, it had no one said anything, then it just sort of becomes the norm to A, have $40 DLC, and B, have $40 DLC where you don't even announce what's in it.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of the PS3 launch where they're like, it's $599 US, and everyone was like, ha! And had they not laughed and screamed, it would just been $600 consoles would have been the norm.
Yeah.
We'd be paying that left and right now.
Yeah,
and we didn't get to that weird
There's a time
dystopia,
to yell and scream.
so.
You don't need to be mean, and you don't need to be myopic when you yell.
Yeah.
But you can do that constructively, and it looks like people did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going back to the Kickstarter thing. This is one of the best things about the internet is that it is a real time, like, audience, customer base reaction, whatever that thing is. We do listen to your complaints, dear readers, dear listeners. Here's one.
Every word.
Here's one specifically.
Cry, single tears. Sorry.
This is an email that we got. This is from Duncan. This is also something that I've seen posted on Numerous Facebook groups in regards to Metal Gear Solid 5. He says, hello, pod people. I've been a listener to the show for a few years, but I've only recently become a fully fledged member of the PlayStation family when I bought a PS4 and PS Vita. I'm really enjoying getting stuck into franchises and games that I've heard of but have never played. I think he means sucked. For example, Uncharted, The Last of Us Journey. But there's one franchise that I'm completely daunted by and I don't know where to start. With Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain coming out this year, I thought I'd give Ground Zeroes a go and get me ready. I jumped in and was immediately lost by the story. The gameplay isn't a problem, but who are all these people? Why have they got funny snake names? And what's going on? I feel like I'd walked into a movie halfway through. A quick Google search revealed my problem. There have been 26 various Metal Gear titles to date. Do you know if I'm going to be able to pick up The Phantom Pain and understand the story, or can you give me a short synopsis of what I really need to understand? Failing that, would I have a better idea what's going on if I played Metal Gear Solid HD Collection on my Vita, or are those two games so old now that I'd be in the dark, and without having played the original Metal Gear, will I still be lost? Many thanks, and beyond, from a very confused listener, Duncan, who is Duff Dunks on PSN.
Did we ever do a series here at IGN called In 5 Minutes? Kind of infrequently, but when we do, it's amazing reader service. I wrote one for Call of Duty, and I wrote one for Uncharted. I think Uncharted 1 and 2 before 3 came out. It's just sort of like refreshers. But for years, we joked about wanting to do Metal Gear. But I don't think we've ever
been talking about wanting to do. I think Mitch wants to do that, but it just seems.
I think that'd be Metal Gear in 5 hours.
It seems insane, right? Is that even possible to do in 5 minutes?
No, I don't think so.
Because this guy specifically is asking for that.
So I can give you my short answer is. The original Metal Gear Solid is still referring to two other games that came out much earlier. There's the original Metal Gear. Metal Gear 2 was never released stateside until it came out with Metal Gear Solid 3, which was like 13 years later or something. Right. The first Metal Gear Solid is probably the most immediately accessible in terms of kind of modern gameplay. It's still very difficult, but it's really kind of gorgeous and impressive. I would say it's like $6 on PSN. You know, roll the dice, give it a shot.
It's a pretty short game.
It's pretty short. I mean, if you're good at it, it's interesting. You know, it's parts of it have aged weirdly, and other parts have held up incredibly well. You can also just watch a playthrough of it online. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 are available in the HD collection. That's fabulous. That's a fantastic way to get into the series. But Metal Gear Solid 2 also refers a lot to Metal Gear Solid 1. And the problem also is you're playing that on Vita. It's a really cool idea, but those were games that were meant to be played on a larger screen. And there's a lot of weird detail, especially with the third one, which is it relies heavily on camouflage, which is kind of like you want to be able to tell if guards are looking at you, and if you're looking at it on a 4-inch screen, it's kind of tricky. 3 is a prequel that takes place like 40 or 50 years before Metal Gear Solid 2, which is a bit weird. Most of the games, I looked down this list of Metal Gear games that I included. I think 3 of them were DLC for Metal Gear Online, which is just a multiplayer mode. 2 of those were card games. There was Metal Gear Portable Ops, which is sort of like Pokemon but with human beings, where you would capture guards and then use them as your dudes. you know, it's tricky. Metal Gear, like Ground Zeroes, I went to Japan and I jumped into that. Yeah. It's assuming you've played
Peace
Walker.
Walker. That's the big one that I think the story ties in Phantom Pain are linked a lot to Peace Walker.
One of the ones that had like the most limited reception because it was a PSP game.
It was a PSP game.
Like
but
people love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's absolutely worth going back and playing.
I don't really like it. Like I never got into it. I tried to revisit it. I did all my research before I played Ground Zeroes, and I still was a little bit lost because it's kind of like. In terms of plot, you're nestled pretty deep because it's a sequel to a prequel of the 5th sequel in a series or whatever the hell it is.
You know, the man who used to sit in that chair, it's his favorite game of all time.
I'm sorry, fans of this podcast. I've been told to take over. Stop throwing rocks at my house.
This is a series of games that is created by a crazy person and meant to be abstruse, obtuse, vast, and difficult.
What's that first word? Abstruse?
Abstract and
that's a bird. Abstruse. That's a word.
That's a real word.
Yeah, it's a real word.
Abstruse.
Abstruse.
That sounds like a kind of bird.
No, it's abstruse. It means difficult to decipher or difficult to. Anyway, but
abstruse.
This whole thing's abstruse,
right?
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
the word abstruse is abstruse to me.
Okay, so the crazy Japanese man designs G.I. Joe plus space plus James Bond. And makes this incredible series of games that are so much fun to play, but they're deliberately difficult to get into. I mean, that's the whole idea. The whole idea is you're just supposed to be soaked in these.
Oh, yeah.
So I really do think Max's description of how to go through them is probably the way to go at it. Yeah, you got to play them if you want to know what's going on.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Or just read like the worst wiki ever.
Yeah, it's pretty messy to get in there. I mean, I jumped into Ground Zeroes, and I remember asking like before, and I'm like, so I didn't play Peace Walker. Am I gonna miss much? And they're like, well, luckily there's a helpful guide in the beginning. And it's like a 17-page slide PowerPoint at the beginning of Ground Zeroes that you have to flip through, and it's like, here's what you missed, and I'm like, what? And it's really weird because 5 is the biggest, most open world, big, huge cinematic iteration in the series. It is one of the most, it's the most polished one to date, and yet it's the sequel to one that was probably the least cinematic since the NES MSX era because it had motion comics for all the cutscenes, and this is it's really odd that was a deliberate choice. It's also it's been a minute. Metal Gear Solid 4 was a weird kind of convoluted sort of end of the series, and then we had Revengeance in there, and it's this is a pretty good time for a fresh reboot of Metal Gear Solid, but Phantom Pain does not look like it's going to be any kind of a fresh start for anybody, you know? And
doesn't that? I mean, that kind of sucks.
It does suck. It totally sucks.
It's because from somebody on the outside looking in, I've dabbled in the Metal Gear games, and I've played or finished a few of them, but I haven't followed the lore, especially weaving through multiple platforms and stuff like that. But I look at it this game looks beautiful. You have this awesome looking character. The graphics are incredible. The open world setting is really interesting to me. I like the horse stealth stuff looks really cool.
Of course you like the horse stuff.
No, you know what? They're cool animals, or I don't have to tell you. But everything about this game looks really cool until I realize that I'm not going to understand anything that's going on, and that sucks.
Well, it's Hideo Kojima. This man's the Andy Kaufman of video games. I mean, he does not care that you have to play through all of it. He wants you to. That's the conceit. That's the joy of it. That's what makes these games terrible and wonderful.
But I can't just go play this new game without doing
you have no idea
20 years of
even
homework.
If you play through all, I've played probably through 20 of the 26 Metal Gear games. I'm not going to know what's going on in Phantom Pain. I don't really care.
Does it not matter?
No, I don't care.
Okay, so then
let me let you in on a little secret. Nothing that happens in a video game really matters.
Yes.
Because it's not real.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah, you understand that lore does have impact.
Yeah.
You have three Star Wars tattoos.
Yes, I do. I get it. No, and I really
matters within the confines of the story that
this is one of the things that I'm probably stepping on some toes of hardcore fans by saying this, but I think one thing that the Metal Gear series could benefit from without Kojima's direct involvement, if Konami does in fact continue to exist as a company and is not engulfed in flames anytime soon, making like a reboot of Metal Gear, making
Yeah.
a fresh start. I mean, I was actually really hoping at one point that the Phantom Pain would be Metal Gear 1 again. You know, like here it is 35 years later or what have you, and it's.
I was hoping the same thing, honestly, and that's kind of what I maybe had tricked myself into thinking it was, but it's not. You know what I hope happens 2 years from now? They do reboot it, and a whole bunch of people are like, "Man, they really dumbed it down, and they're really angry," and I can sit in the corner going, "Yes."
but like Max says, that is very much dependent on the question of whether Konami is at all interested in producing console video games anymore.
Sure.
I mean, that they're focused on mobile and
Yeah,
other
Metal
ways
Gear
of
will be a
making money.
pachinko machine in 3 years.
Yeah.
If it's not already, I'm sure it
You'll
is.
be able to understand that game though.
No, actually, we've talked about pachinko cafes on this show before, and they first of all, it's not a cafe.
Well,
Second of
there are
all-
pachinko cafes. That's
Yeah,
actually-
they don't know. Those things make less sense to me than any Metal Gear game. They're completely loud and confusing.
They're not
and
cafes; they're
obnoxious.
sensory prisons.
Yes, they are.
That's amazing.
They beat you in the head.
Yeah, so I don't know. I HD Collection is a great spot to check out Metal Gear.
They're also just good. Like you owe it to yourself to go back and be like Metal Gear Solid 3 is really good.
And I guess
Metal Gear
we-
Solid's really good.
And I guess
I love,
we
I
we-
love 2 the most. That's my favorite,
Yeah.
but it really doesn't work unless you know what's happening in 1. And 3 is arguably like a lot more interesting in terms of what it does. And it's also, I'd say 3 might be a good starting point because it is a
Canonically,
prequel.
it's the
Yeah. So
Snake Eater.
yeah.
Yeah.
Snake
Yeah,
Eater
I
takes
don't know
Cold
because
War.
I mean I tried replaying that game recently and the first hour of it is very much just like, huh? Why are they shooting at me?
Did you
Why
play
am I
Subs-
climbing this tree to get my bag?
Were you
Why did I
playing
just eat a snake's egg?
Subsistence, or which one?
Huh?
Were you playing Subsistence or were you playing?
it's probably,
Yes.
if it was the newest one, it's probably.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but it sounds like we owe it to our audience to write and produce that in Metal Gear.
Yeah,
in
we
5
have
minutes thing.
until September.
Yeah.
Also,
It's
Ghost
going to take
Babel.
us that long.
Secret
Ghost
Best
Babel's
Metal
awesome.
Gear.
Ghost
Secret Best
Babel.
Metal Gear.
Ghost
Ghost
Babel's
Babel's
awesome.
really cool.
It's
I
a
love that
gorgeous
game.
game.
Yeah.
All right, so another email. Our dream video game mashup. This is from Milo in Melksham.
What is that a real place?
Probably.
Was that next to Yarnum?
If you could fuse any 2 games into one incredible Vegito game, I like that. That's a Dragon Ball Z
I
reference.
thought that
For
was a
you
sexy thing.
Old men who
Thought it
don't
was a
watch
snack.
cool cartoons like me. Which games would you choose and why? Inspired by last week's chat, I think any interesting mashup would be to combine the mechanics and global reach of any Call of Duty game with the story of Spec Ops: The Line. I think this would be great as it would have exposed more people to that wonderful story and been an exciting needle mover for COD, while also being hilarious in its incongruity as an anti-war game coming off the back of a decade of annualized war games.
You know what sucks? They were making mine. It was Star Wars 1313.
Because it was Star Wars, but with
It was
Uncharted.
Uncharted and sci-fi, and I was like, "Yep, those are 2 of my favorite things in the world. Put them together."
Yeah.
I actually really like. I love the sort of pacing of Uncharted style games, or Tomb Raider. Actually, probably even a little more so. I think I like the last Tomb Raider game more than I liked Uncharted 3. Sorry, but those things are always grounded in like right now, or it's just like a guy in the woods with with just like mud, and I'd love to see aliens and like ships come in that are crashed over that you're climbing up and stuff like that. Like these sort of like space war torn landscapes that you're climbing on different planets and fighting people that aren't just 55 white dudes with helmets on with shotguns. I mean, you can shoot white guys in space, but let me shoot some aliens too.
To continue on the Star Wars thing, for some reason reading this just made me think I want a game that's like the bar scenes in Catherine, but it just takes place in the cantina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
man.
and just like real like get in depth and like know who these weird characters are and what their
Right.
flaws are and what their backstories are, and have it sort of be this. Because the way Catherine did each day, it was almost like real time where you could miss things and you could, if you're going to talk to this dude for 5 minutes, you're not going to be talking to that dude for 5 minutes and he might bounce
Right,
during your
right.
conversation.
You need to play Callahan's Cross Time Saloon so bad. Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah,
That's
you've
I was like,
got
why
to
does that
play
sound
this.
familiar?
You've got to play this game. Yeah,
That's a real game.
Yeah, Callahan's Cross Time Saloon. It's an adventure game, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's this really cool kind of sci-fi, down-to-earth, Spider Robinson written old style point and click PC adventure game, and it's what Marty.
All my games I just want to
It's
take
a
place
lot
in
of
a
what
bar.
Marty
Yeah.
wants in the
Yeah.
universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I kind of want it like a combination of what you two just said, but like think the different characters thing from GTA, but in Mos Eisley,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
maybe
like how we all
scale
went
it
to Star
down
Wars.
so it's. I mean, you get the ball rolling. It's,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to keep going.
Get the ball droid rolling.
Or either that, or think like somewhere between. And I'm not trying to be funny. This is actually something that I'd love to see. somewhere between Goat Simulator, Mortal Kombat, and MotorStorm, where it's animals that are racing, but they're like just hyper violent, and just like if they go too fast, they blow up, and if they crash into each other, blood flies everywhere.
So this is Speed with animals?
No, it's much worse than that. It would be more like, I don't know, Road Warrior, but with farm animals.
That sounds great.
I don't know why that's a thing that I thought of, but I don't know. It's just funny to me.
That's such a good idea. Yeah, I'd play that. That sounds wonderful. I think I'm going to go back to one for a thing I turned in my copy too late to get into one of the group projects that we do here. I want Final Fantasy Tactics with the Avengers or with superheroes. I want to play Final Fantasy Tactics, and you've got that wonderful thing where it's squad versus squad, and everybody's got special abilities. That's every comic book ever.
Right.
So you can have teams of superheroes battling teams of superheroes or villains from the same continuity and universe with that tactics control engine.
Of all the games we pitched, I feel like yours is the most likely to get made, but it's
free to play mobile.
It's going to be on iOS.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to be free to play mobile.
Because that sounds like I can see what that looks like in my head.
Yeah. First, the battle scenes would be so much fun. But second, this is a game that you could build a story around. I mean, you could build a great story because the best comics are built first on story and second on pummeling. And I think you could make that work 1-2 punch. With that kind of thing. I've dreamt about that game since I played Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
We've talked about things that I really want on this podcast before. Like, I think you said the Richard Scarry open world game, and you said the
that exists.
No.
Yeah,
we talked
the
about
Richard
it.
Scarry open world game exists.
It's not open enough.
And then you said the open world game that takes place in Toontown.
Yeah,
I want that game too. I want all those games.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this Richard Scarry game in one day. We're going to play it.
Sounds Richard spooky.
Richard.
This isn't really. I like how. Write it down.
I'm writing it down, man. That's fine.
Hold on. I just got to say real quick, it's kind of nice that we censor curses on this podcast because it makes each one so special.
Yeah.
Like, you feel like
we're like Spawn using his powers.
Yeah, it's like I was going to say it's like in a fighting game where you build up your special and you get to use it in the right moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Spawn reference better, I think.
Is the special just making me write something down? Is that what the special is?
That is part of the joy, yeah. I do get enjoyment from that.
So, we got a letter in the mail on paper.
Whoa.
How does that work?
White powder with it?
Not anymore.
White powder.
Okay.
Somebody sniffed it all up.
That's bad too.
Powder.
I know. I got it.
Yeah.
This is from a lovely fellow named Chase Bethia, who I met at GDC a couple years ago. He says, "Hello, Marty, Max, Brian, and Jared. Hopefully, Jared is there.
Oh,
Magic
wow.
wish man.
Thank you so much. That was very nice.
That's really
of you.
nice because I used to do the show with Greg and Colin. They would be like, "Hi, Greg and Colin," and whoever the fuck's in the third chair. I'd be like, "It's me again. Sorry."
I just feel so honored.
I didn't say the full F word there.
Chase goes on
I only
to
use
say,
half my special.
I am curious about the sorting hat goes around over at IGN in regards to reviewing a game. I really want to know if people get to choose the game they want to review, or the people that work there pressed for time to review a game. Are there consequences to missing a review posting date? Is it a free-for-all for reviewing new games? Is there seniority for reviewing a more popular game? Example, a point-and-click adventure game comes out and a reviewer from IGN is chosen to do the review. This particular reviewer doesn't like point-and-click adventures at all, but because it's his or her job to play video games, he or she is now under a time crunch to get the review out.
A lot of questions there.
Marty,
you've probably reviewed more games than I think anyone that's ever worked here.
yeah, I think I was number one last year, and I'm currently number one.
Really?
Yeah.
How many games did you review last year?
Over 30.
Wow.
But I think I cheated because I had a couple Telltale series, so that's like 5 games.
They're 2 hours you counted each one of those?
I
mean, they're They're chapters.
I mean, the thing that starts off, Dan Stapleton, our reviews editor, he chooses someone who would probably buy this game regardless. Not regardless, but like someone who would be interested in this game regardless.
Yeah.
So I review a lot of our point-and-click adventure games because that's a genre I really love. I reviewed Dark Souls 2 because I love Dark Souls 1.
Yep.
They're not going to throw someone who... I don't play sports games, so never going to review a sports game.
Yep.
Someone who doesn't play.
But please do once just for yourself.
Pro tip to aspiring freelancers wanting to get into games writing: learn how to play sports games.
Sports games and
you
racing
will be
games.
Yep.
And racing games.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's actually a really good tip.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our racing games, we handle them like in the UK and AU because they're big fans of how cars go against each other.
Because driving on that side of the road is more fun, apparently.
The left side's fun.
American or United States sporting-based things have been handled by freelancers or contractors almost exclusively for the last 4 years, I would say, here at IGN.
Yeah. I mean, so there's also things like that. Like, those games can be serious time crunches.
Yeah.
You know, massive RPGs can be time crunches. And, like, the big ones, like, you know, Vince reviewed Dragon Age, and he's at home right now reviewing Witcher. Like, those are things we want to do in-house. But at the same time, like, a smaller, you know, not to poo-poo on the Vita, but a smaller Vita RPG, if we're going to review it, we might give to a freelancer because, hey, it's not worth the 40, 50 hours of someone in-house doing a game.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does come down to seniority. You know, sometimes the executive editors get their first pick, but if there's, I don't think we've ever had a case here where someone's reviewed a game and I've been like, that's you put a wrong person on there.
Yeah.
Because a review is just an opinion.
I mean, you could disagree with their score at the end of the day, and that happens all the time. Like, that's the thing that, like, I always try to stress to people who listen to this show or watch this show that, like, if you're reading one of our reviews and you're yelling at it because you disagree with it, like, we have those same conversations in the office about everything. When you're reading one of our ranked lists and you're like, what, Vision is not better than Quicksilver or something like that, like, we're having those same debates in the office. Like, all those things are happening right here. And you know, maybe Quicksilver is better than Vision. I don't know.
They're decided by headlocks.
That's right.
Really what
that's right.
Yeah.
And Vision's kind of wet. You can't always get that ball.
I don't think Vision's...
He looks like a slimy man. He's a weird... I don't know what that is.
He's intangible.
All right.
So,
headlocks don't work.
I know when I...
All right.
When I started working in this industry at IGN, I was writing for a site called GameSpy, and I wanted to pick up a few reviews here and there. GameSpy was a PC site, but they also did console stuff. So I remember specifically asking about 6 months after I started if I could review Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass.
Oh.
And one of the more senior people there was just like, you haven't earned that yet. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like the best person on staff because I'm a huge Zelda guy. And they're like, no, you have to play just garbage for years before you can play something like that. I feel like a lot of that has gone away.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
luckily,
definitely.
like, we don't haze new people
Brandon
anymore.
Terrell came in, and 2 of his first 3 games were The Order and Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't want to review Bloodborne because we got that game like the day it came out, and he had to play it for a week, and he had scary spider ladies attack him.
One was 4 hours long, and one was 400 hours.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That was the thinking, maybe.
But yeah, it's not really just. I think I feel like the old sort of senior journalist, like magazine style guys back in the day were probably just like, the best guy, the oldest guys and the most senior guys get the coolest games, and all the new guys get the junk. Like,
what was your first GameSpy review? Do you remember?
No, I don't. I think it might have been No More Heroes 2.
Oh, you still did. My first review ever was for GameSpy, and it was Mafia Wars 2 by Zynga.
Yeah, I mean, I was that's awful.
Wow.
No, I was mentored in by guys like Ryan Scott, you know, who they would start. They wrote for One Up. Oh boy, and they would say things like they would go up to freelancers and interns and be like, hey, what do you like to do on the weekends? They're like, oh, I like to, hang out and stuff. You ever go to an amusement park? Yeah, I love amusement parks. What about theme parks? Yeah, I love theme parks. Cool, you're reviewing Circus DS. And it was just like, no! Like, it's a horrible trick. And like, you don't really hear so much of that with Dan Stapleton. He's sort of he's much more of a fair king than that.
That's good. I would speak to this more, but I've only been here for a few months, so I don't really. And I'm also not. Probably not reviewing stuff any point soon. I don't. Maybe eventually. I don't know. But like that's not my primary job duty. So
no, I mean, you and Brian are hosts, and as hosts, you don't really review games. You have different things. That's why Greg stopped reviewing games the last couple of years he was here because he became a host.
Yeah.
I did review games at Rev 3 when I was there. I never reviewed anything for Destructoid, I don't think. But I did do stuff for Revision 3, which was interesting because I was working with like Adam Sessler before he started. It was me, and it was Zach Miner and Tara Long and Anthony Carboni, and that was our entire team basically. That was everybody. We had, I think, maybe 1 or 2 occasions when we had a freelancer come in. And the thing is, we were always going to be the personalities. There's one review that I did that I didn't write the review myself. It was for Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, which is a huge, massive game, and I was reviewing some other game at the same time, and also doing, regular content and stuff. So we had a freelancer come in, who's a guy I know named Miguel, who who played the game at home and basically captured the footage, and we compared notes on what we thought of it. And he, we kind of accommodated both of our thoughts on my time with the game and his time with the entirety of the game. And it was that was I always feel sort of guilty about that. But then there's a ton of other games that I did review myself, and I did play that, and it's I don't really miss it because it's kind of it's really a horrible thing to do. Video games can be everything from like Tetris to The Last of Us. Like they take so many forms, and to be like, hey, so the review is going up on Tuesday. You need to have it ready by then, or to answer your question, Chase, you get maybe in trouble if you're late on every review. You kind of miss the boat. It doesn't look good in the eyes of PR. It doesn't look good in the eyes of your bosses. But you're like, hey, can you play through this 40-hour game in a week? And it's like, that's not normal. That's not normal. Like it might seem great, but it's kind of like the Bruce Bogtrotter theme or scene in Matilda, where he's like gets in trouble for stealing cake, and so they make him eat the entire cake in front of the whole school, and everyone's like, Bruce.
I want to kiss you for making that reference.
I will always throw down some Roald Dahl.
Okay,
here.
I'm with you there.
Yeah,
that's
really
one of my
good.
favorite books.
Yeah.
But we actually talked
And if you don't do it in time, you get thrown in the pokey.
We talked about Brandon Tyrell's
Chokey?
his 4 or 5 days where he had to play Bloodborne too much, and a couple of people tweeted at me, and they're just like, "Oh, I would kill for that. I hate my job." And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, it's all relative. Like, I think it's not. You would probably kill to play a game for 4 days. Like, hey, boss, I'm taking 4 days off at work and I'm playing Bloodborne. Yeah, that sounds awesome. But then having to come back and write a couple page long review, write a video script, make sure all the footage is captured. Yeah. And also, I mean, this obviously didn't happen for Bloodborne because it was exclusive, but reviewing has changed a lot here in IGN in the last few years in terms of calculating and mapping the difference from each platform to platform. Yeah. And that's something that wasn't really that prevalent when I started. I mean, you saw it a little bit, like we would put in like a footnote or something like that. But with like the resolution gate that happened a few years ago of sort of like which game looks best, like which is what, how many P's is this running on? Yeah. All of a sudden, it became we had to do graphics tests between each one. Yeah. It's actually, you're getting into like science and math a little more than just reading and writing and arithmetic.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff you have to wait until the game is out in the wild. If a game has a heavy online component, we can't really. That's why we don't put scores on online games before the games come out. That's why we have a review in progress. And a lot of people think it's some conspiracy for us to get clicks, and it's like, no, we don't want to put a score on a game and then have the game not work and have the review be a lie to you. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these games.
For the readers and the viewer benefit.
100%. A lot of these games are actually tested and built under the pressure of servers that just don't exist when they're in pre-production or even in post when they hand us a game and they go, hey, what do you think of this? And we're like, well, we can't play. Like GTA Online, we couldn't play. It wasn't ready. Yeah. And by the time it was ready, it was crashing like crazy. But eventually we were like, now it's playable. Now it's working. Let's revisit this and let's talk about it.
But all of this taken into due consideration, it's one of my favorite things that I do here when I do get a chance to do it. And that's because when it's something wonderful, you get a chance to tell people how wonderful a game is.
Yeah.
When it's something terrible, you get a chance to warn people.
Yeah.
At least some people before they run out and waste their money that they could be spending on another good thing.
Totally.
And I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it like that because I don't think we've ever really hired people that take joy in trashing a game. Like every now and then you'll see one of those like 1 out of 10 scores. It's just like, man, this is abysmal. It's awful. But those are like, they barely even count as games. Like they're so bad that you have to go that low. But I mean, like if we gave a game like a 4 or a 5, like the reviewer probably wanted to like it. He or she's not sitting there going like, oh man, I'm gonna rip this thing apart. It's gonna be the time of my life. Like
negativity like breeds negativity, and that's the thing is we don't really want to be negative about stuff, and it really is very nerve-wracking when you spend 40 hours on a game or something, and then you write a review and you put it up, and people are like, meh, or people are like, this guy's wrong. And you're like, well, all right, I wasted 40 hours, so there you go. Now, we have been doing this thing this month that we've been very bad about checking in on. We had our Podcast Beyond Book Club. We all said we were going to play Aru's Awakening and Monster Bag, which were the free games on PlayStation Plus this month for basically all the systems. Aru's Awakening was on PS3 and PS4, and Monster Bag was on Vita. What did you guys think of them? Did you play them?
I played Aru's Awakening.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? Let's start with that one because it's alphabetical and it has 2 A's.
It does have 2 A's. This was a game I felt like I was predisposed to love, and I didn't. And
Me
I was
too.
bummed out by that.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. I'm like, this is a 2D puzzle platformer with gorgeous, like absolutely stunning hand-drawn art. Like the creatures in this world look incredible. I love the atmosphere of like the sun raining down on you and your characters are sweating and the weird stuff that comes out at night. But ultimately, the core mechanic of sort of vamping and teleporting in the game just feels weird. And when a core gameplay mechanic of a game doesn't hook me, that's just it's like a shooter where the shooting doesn't feel good.
You know what's interesting is that people were kind of comparing this to the Swapper, which I know you really love.
I love it,
but I love the look of it, but I actually got kind of tripped up with that like multiplicity thing that was going on and the teleporting and all that. Like, call me like old school, but I actually like my kind of exploration based 2D platformers to be a little more platformy and less puzzle based.
It's a difficult balance to strike.
Yeah. So this felt like a kind of watered down version of something that I thought I would love and didn't. So it was like so many steps down removed from like, man, this looks like it's my game, but I felt the exact same way.
Yeah.
My take on it was it definitely felt like it was built on a sort of incomplete mechanic. You know, they said that they built it based on the teleporter in Unreal Tournament, which I don't know if you ever used it, but it's like a really cool thing if you get the hang of it. Like, you can kill somebody by teleporting through them, but you have to be really good at it to do that right. And then they kind of threw in this really cool aesthetic that I was kind of into. It reminded me a lot of the Max, the old comic, like that Sam Keith style.
Yeah.
It's a Unity game, which is interesting, and it's also hand drawn, which is also interesting. And I'm wondering if part of the reason this got thrown up there when it did is if Sony scouted it out and was like, this can be our Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yeah,
because that's similar, like very different games.
I was playing
clearly
both of these at the same time. I'm still playing through Ori, and I'm like, man,
I mean, even the names are kind of similar sounding. Like, you've got a lot of similar elements there. It felt very very ambitious in a way that like student games are. Like, they've got all this lore in there, and I'm like, it's a really like, once you get out of the lore, it's a very like the game doesn't have anything to do with the story. You know, it's not, it's not what is it, ludonarrative dissonance. It just doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
Like, you're moving your way through this entirely surreal landscape. There's no need to explain anything.
I think like you kind of nailed it too about like, if you don't have like a lot of games are built not really like, to me, I think if it gets built based on a story, it's already kind of a problem out the gate. Like, it's very rare that works. I think it has to start from a mechanic that is fundamentally sound and is awesome. And I don't think this game had that. And I think they just kept building stuff around it to sort of cover up for the fact that like that thing right there doesn't hook you the way it should, you know.
So it's funny, there's a line in The Simpsons. It's that episode where Homer becomes a food critic, and there's the old food critic who's retiring, and it gives him a birthday cake. And he's like, oh, great, Baskin Robbins. Why make 32 flavors if you can't get vanilla right? And I feel like that's kind of relevant here. Like, you gotta, and it's like, really, if you're making a platformer, and you gotta have the jumping tight. You got to get that one thing right.
Mario taught us this. Super Mario Brothers taught us that.
Exactly. Now, of course, we've got Monster Bag on Vita, which is a really weird little game that I get kind of vibes of like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends from that. You're an unanimate backpack that's alive, that's a monster, that's also a bag, that's making its way from the back of its owner to it's trying to find your owner. What? But it's a stealth puzzle adventure game kind of,
where sort of in every scene your owner just exits scene right, and you have to maneuver your way through the scene in order to get to where they were going, and you have to do so by, it's like a stealth game because you don't want to be spotted by the humans who are walking around, but it also becomes a puzzle game because you have to realize, well, how do I distract certain people, how do I get certain people to move? And I love the aesthetic of the game. I love that look. I think the game's great. I love stealth puzzle games in theory, but again, in execution, this didn't hook me super hard. And I was a little bummed that it felt like the puzzles had this one kind of finite solution to them, and I would just keep bashing my head against the wall until I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the thing I need to do.
Well, we're talking like an Adventures of Lolo type thing, where there's just only one way to get the level right, and you just have to keep dying and dying until you get it.
The issue there is that there's a death animation where if somebody saw you, which is really, I think that's the only way you can really die in that, is just if somebody catches you, whole game freezes and it zooms in and it says brutal kill and they like chop you in half or they shoot you or something, you know. And I feel like it's one of those things that maybe they had a bunch of different death animations, but they didn't get a chance to finish them all, and they were just like, let's just ship it with this one or something. And I'm just speculating there, but that was the thing that really kind of ruined the experience for me, because it's not like it's punishing me for failing at the stealth portion of something that isn't really a strong stealth game.
Yeah,
right.
Like you're memorizing, you're timing your movement in a way that's not. It's not making you want to continue playing it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Trial and error games can be a lot of fun if you get back to it quick and if you feel like you're
Super Meat
advancing.
Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, that instant respawn in Super Meat Boy is something that's sort of, if a game's gonna be really tough, that's a thing that has to exist.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, one of the main problems everyone had with Bloodborne was that, like, this game's really hard, I die a lot, and I'm punished with a minute-long loading screen every time.
Yep.
Yeah, if you took out the stealth elements in Monster Bag, I feel like it could have been like a really charming little puzzle game. But the problem with that is it wouldn't be very challenging. It would just be kind of like a little interactive storybook type of thing. But I mean, it felt like an artificial challenge kind of like it's for lack of a better word just cheap in how it punishes you.
Right.
So I don't know. But hey, they were free games, you know.
Yeah. And on a more positive note, this month's free games are pretty much across the board awesome.
Oh man, this
is
one of their best ones ever.
We've got Yooka-Layle Super Turbo Championship Edition. That's PS4. Is that on all of them, or is it just PS4?
That's just the PS4 one is free this
Okay.
And that's a game, obviously, Brian, you inducted it into our Essential 50.
Yeah,
The
I
game's
love it.
incredible.
This is actually also has all the extra DLC stuff.
Plays different characters,
Yep.
multiplayer
Nice.
stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Then there's Ether 1.
Which is also coming out this week, so it's free for PlayStation
Wow.
Plus. New game. This was a PC first-person exploration adventure puzzle game, sort of Gone Home, but it has this like cool time travel, puzzle mechanic to it.
Cool.
Game's gorgeous, super fun, atmospheric. I never finished the PC version, so excited to hop into it.
Then there's the Unfinished Swan, which is PS3 cross-buy with PS4 and PS Vita. That's been out for a little while.
Have you played that game, Max?
I haven't
Oh,
actually.
yeah. This
I
one's
think,
gonna be right up
you
your alley.
specifically would like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You play as a invisible paint-throwing baby that tries to discover
Yeah.
the world around it
This
using
was
nothing
a
but goo.
Game of the Year nominee 3 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go that far, but I definitely did enjoy it. The pacing's kind of deliberately slow, and it's very much like being born in the first hour. You have no idea what's going on. Everything's white, and you're just aimlessly throwing paint everywhere. But they start doing a lot of stuff with environment and color as the game keeps building.
And the game's short.
It's very short.
Like you'll finish it in like 2.5, 3 hours. Like
yeah.
it's if you haven't played it yet, I mean, pick it up and play it on PS4.
This is a
Yeah,
game.
this is
sorry.
I was going to say this is also a cross-buy game, so you can get it if you have a PS3 Vita, PS4. It works on everything. So
And this is a game I wanted a sequel to. I feel like there's so many good ideas.
The Finished Swan?
That didn't quite come together. There's a lot of great stuff in it still.
Yeah,
but
and
I
that's
feel like
Giant Sparrow's been working on a game called codenamed Edith Finch for a while. It's another PlayStation exclusive game, but we haven't
Birds,
seen it
y'all.
yet.
Yep.
Then there's Race the Sun,
Yeah.
PS3 cross-buy with PS4 and Vita. This is like a surrealist racing game?
Surrealist, like almost like a racing endless runner. Kind of looks like a really good version of Star Fox for Super Nintendo. Super cool, trippy.
I'm down.
A really good version of Star Fox for Super Nintendo.
Yeah, if that
would
makes
be Star
sense.
Fox for Super Nintendo.
The linchpin question here is how good is the music? Because this is one of those games that like
The music's good, but it's not as good as the music in the next game.
which is Hohokum.
Yes.
And you're correct there.
That is, if you haven't played Hohokum, that is a game where you sit down, you do things.
Hohokum is how I recovered from jet lag from being in Vietnam and food poisoning from ordering mall sushi in San Bruno. That was an awful week, and I decided to tackle the disgusting wormy things in my stomach with an adorable wormy thing flying around.
There you go.
Yeah.
That game is so cool.
This
that
is
game
a game. It's paired well with spicy water and jazz cigarettes.
Oh, Marty. Then there's Murasaki Baby, which
Yeah.
is like the Tim Burtonest looking game you've ever seen.
Yeah, on
It's a
Vita, super, weird.
Yep.
Mary Joan and Vasquez.
Dark, yeah.
Spooky.
Yeah,
spooky
all these things are
goth
free.
babies.
You get
Yeah.
like $150 worth of free games.
Yeah.
Go play them.
So if you don't have a PS Plus account, I don't know why, you should get one. You
Yeah.
should get on that. Should we pick a book club game? Should we discuss it
Oh
further?
yeah. How about Ether One?
Ether
It's
One?
new.
I could do that. Why don't we pick two?
Okay.
Let's do Ether 1 and Race the Sun.
Okay.
Okay.
Raise
But
the guns.
that being said, if you haven't played the other games in this list, please play Yooka-Layle and Unfinished Swan
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I mean, play the other ones for our book club, but yes, definitely play Guacamelee.
And we're going to be better at checking in as opposed to end of the month.
Cool. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Wolfenstein: The Old Blood is out Tuesday. It's $20.
Yeah, it's a standalone. Like I think it's retail and digital. You don't need Wolfenstein. It's a prequel. I think
So
it's got
just
like
a regular Nazi game as opposed to like a
but
weird,
it's got zombies.
weird futuristic 1960s Nazi game.
Robot zombies?
I think robot zombie Nazis. Yeah, it takes place but yeah, it comes out.
I saw that movie.
By the time you're listening to this, it's already out, but our review's probably not up because we don't have the game yet. So
Is that a sign?
no, I don't think it's a sign.
Okay.
I think it's just it sucks. And not the game sucks.
Oh.
It just sucks that we don't have the game yet.
I was going to say, because then a lot of times here at IGN, we don't get a game until last minute. It's the same sort of thing that happens when they don't send a movie reviewer to review, and he has to go see it on Friday night. It's usually because they're trying to hide it from him.
No, I mean,
but
in this case, like, Wolfenstein was rad. I like Wolfenstein a lot, so I'm hopefully getting code tonight or tomorrow, and I'll start it then. And it's on our live stream tomorrow, which doesn't matter because I don't even know if this podcast will be up by then.
All right.
Yeah.
Finally, we have our Essential 50. Jared, you brought a lovely old chestnut.
I did. Yeah, it's time for this to go in there. Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Yep. Done. Wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we can almost do that. This is my favorite game on any PlayStation platform ever. Wow. I love.
Is it your favorite? So it's your favorite Castlevania game too, right?
Yeah. Although I love Rondo. I love Rondo of Blood.
Really?
Yeah, totally. Which are diametrically opposed games. One's a classical kind of stiff platformer. The other's exploratory, but they're both wonderful. I can't say enough good things about it. It has probably the bravest twist. When there was the internet was not what it is today. And it was entirely possible to miss half this game, to get the bad ending and have no idea. Because the completion meter went up to 100, and it was 200%. And so, here's the big spoiler. You got the inverted castle in the sky where the really superior second half of the game is waiting.
Yeah.
And you could miss that whole thing.
The entire game literally turned upside down.
Yeah. The
and let
whole
you play it
map
again, which is
playable
genius.
in reverse. But all the new enemies and new plot things unfolding, and new music for every area.
God, the music's so good.
The music's so good. And this on a system, that didn't have the most powerful sound hardware. They really got some great synth out of the PlayStation, which was not always great at synth. Yeah. This and Final Fantasy VIII did some things with that. Incredible art. It's still ridiculously playable. Great pacing. Great opening. The opening of Castlevania is the end of Rondo.
Yeah.
Like the final boss battle of Rondo.
You play
starts
through
the
that.
game.
Yeah.
So,
spoilers for Rondo.
Spoilers for Rondo. Also, there's tons. There's so much depth in this game. Just ridiculous depth that you will never know is there unless you go looking for it. There are these Street Fighter button combo magic spells you can do and unlock.
Turn into a bat.
There's all these RPG elements. There's all these things you can transform into. These little secret guys that'll follow you around, and you can level your little guys that follow you around up. The familiars, and. But you don't have to discover any of this, but you can. Or when you combine the shields and certain weapons, and suddenly you do other button combinations and magic stuff happens, and none of this is documented. They just expect you to figure it out. And what a wonderful game. Okay, that's my long spiel.
That was back when games had secrets.
If nobody's turned off by the massive pile of secrets you left on the table there, how should they get this? What's the best way? Because this is an old game. How do you jump on it? We should be doing this more.
Yeah.
My favorite way to play it is on PSN on my Vita.
Okay.
I really like it that way. There are several ways you can do it. It comes together. If you want to buy the old PSP Rondo of Blood pack, which is also available, you can do it that way. You have to unlock it. And that gets you Rondo of Blood and Symphony. But I actually like the dedicated version of Symphony on PSN a little better. I feel like the emulation's slightly better on that one.
And you already spoiled Rondo.
You fight Dracula at the end of Rondo of Blood.
Damn it, Jared.
And at the end of Castlevania. Yeah, kids, if you're fighting Richter at the end of Castlevania, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So
they've already come so far.
I know. But yeah, it's that was a long spiel, but this is one of my all-time favorite games.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's one of the few PS1 games that I replay on a very regular basis.
Yep.
Cool. There we go.
Local video games. Before we go, should we talk about how next week's episode is going to be a little bit different?
Next week's episode is going to be kind of weird. We're going to be broadcasting it live.
Yeah.
We're going to be recording it live, and you'll be able to watch it if you aren't busy doing other things.
Yeah.
This is going to be just on the IGN
Yeah, it's going to be Wednesday. So the episode's going to be late because this is going to be on Wednesday. You probably listen to this on Tuesday. It's going to be on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. So from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on every Wednesday, we do IGN Plays Live, where two of us play a game. We've all been on the streams before. And so literally right after that, we're just going to go over to an episode of Beyond in here.
Right.
And we're going to be talking about our E3 predictions, which a lot of you have been awesome. And we have a ton of rad emails, and so we're really excited to read a lot of the emails, sort of get feedback on. We're going to make our weird predictions and see if you guys like them, if you don't like them.
We'll be in the chat and keeping track of this. And
yeah,
maybe if you only listen to this as an audio podcast, you get to see what we all look like.
Yeah.
Max, Marty, Brian, is there going to be a cat noise button to protect you from
we're just
your
hopefully it's not
We're
going to
not
swear.
going to curse, yeah. We're going to try and do that. We're going to be good boys.
We're going to treat curses like actual curses.
Who's
and
a
if they
good
happen,
boy? We are.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean,
We're not going to say
meow.
or
Hey.
we're not going to say fart.
Meow.
We're not going to say meow.
Meow.
God damn it.
You can say fart.
I can say
Yeah,
fart.
you can't say.
What do you meows with? This is going to sound like a cat fight at the end of this episode. Woof woof.
That's all.
You can totally say fart.
The best thing about Tuesdays is I come into work and there's just a list on my desk that just says Beyond, and then it's a bunch of swear words with time code next to them.
And like in parentheses, the person who said them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jared, it's never you though.
I try to be genteel.
That's why we bring you back.
I've cursed on Beyond before.
Blasphemy.
You've meowed.
Let me out.
All right. All right. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you'd like to send us emails, it's just beyond@ign.com, and you can send them to us there. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, say hello, ask us questions about things. I'm Max Scoville. Marty is McBiggity. Brian is Agent Bizzle. And Jared is Petty, Jared, which I always read as, I think it's like Petty or like Petite Comrade or like
Petite Comrade.
I'll just
You
do that thing
spell
where
out
I
the
glance
comma,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, COMMA. Yeah, it's a terrible Twitter handle.
You
can change it.
Yeah.
Pretty
It's not a
Commander.
tattoo.
It's not a
Pretty
PSN
Commander.
name.
Is
Pretty
what it was.
Commander. Pretty Commander. I'd like to be
Pretty Commander. That's
I'm
the
good
anime
with
that you're based on, I think.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I really
Always
appreciate
a pleasure.
being
Always.
here.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Beyond.
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 Beyond.